All right. So again, thank you and welcome everyone to this virtual public meeting to talk about the new Unified Development Ordinance that the City of Waukegan has pulled together. If you go to the next slide, I would love to give you a short agenda of what we will be going through this evening. And we have a team of people that will introduce. We will go through a short presentation of the major changes of the Unified Development Ordinance, have time for both Q&A discussion as a group. You could also use your chat feature throughout and then talk about the next steps of how this is being rolled out both to the public and then through the various committees to approval. If you go to the next slide, as always, we want to make sure we have really good housekeeping in physical and then in our virtual worlds. So please keep your microphone muted. And if you need to speak or want to speak, please use the raise your hand function on the Zoom. And then also we have folks monitoring the chat. So you can also put questions in the chat throughout the presentation. We will also have moments where we will pause to give time for people to respond either via raising their hand or putting in the chat, and then have a general discussion at the end. If you go to the next slide as well, we do also have some interactive polling throughout this meeting. So we will be using menti.com to be able to administer polling questions. If you're on your phone or your laptop, you could go to menti.com and enter the code 35383951 in order to access those questions when we are ready for that. You could also use the QR code. And if you don't want to use either, that's fine. You could post your questions in the chat. Louisa from our team has also dropped that link and that code in the chat for easy reference. Next slide. The first Menti poll that we do have that we're going to is, what are you hoping to get out of tonight's meeting? So tonight we are going about the Unified Development Ordinance, and we're kind of curious, who's here, why did you log in, what are you hoping to hear from tonight's meeting? So feel free to go to menti.com, enter the code 35383951 in order to answer that question, or you could also answer it in the chat if that is easier for you. And you can see on the screen, this is updating live. So we have parking, we now learn more about parking and parking requirements, general learning and updates, and about the project. So we do appreciate that. I can't read the yellow one, but if somebody else can read the yellow one for me, that would be great.
It says updates on the project before it said learning.
Okay. And then zoning updates. Thank you. All right, so I'm glad we're all here with similar goals, because if you were looking for anything else besides zoning, you are definitely in the wrong place. But yeah, we will be touching on all of these things: parking, landscaping, zoning, signs, all throughout, and hopefully this will help make the development ordinance, the Unified Development Ordinance, more clear for those both on the call tonight and then also those who will be viewing this via YouTube or on the city's website later on. If you want to go to the next slide, Louisa. We do have a great team that's been working on this for quite some time. From the Waukegan side, we do have the Director of Planning and Economic Development, Noel, who's here tonight. Isabella is a planner also from Waukegan. Tyler, a planner who's on the call. Rachel and Sam, both planners who are on the call tonight, who have been working diligently over the past year or even a little bit more. Noel will share that in a few slides. Have been working to develop, hear all the comments from public, understand what are some of the concerns, and then also find opportunities to streamline zoning and uses and requirements to be more expansive, be more visionary, and to hopefully make it easier to both live, work, and develop within Waukegan. From our side, if you go to the next slide, my name is Catherine Darnstead. I'm the founder of Layton. We're an architecture and urban design firm, and part of our team, Louisa and Damla, who are here this evening, as well as Jake Seed from Sightline. And we were hired by Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, who Jamie Jackson, and I believe Seth may be on the call. But we were hired as part of that organization to work with Waukegan over these last few months to be able to bring this development ordinance, bring a little bit of layer of expertise, some outreach, and ultimately get it into a condition that we're moving forward through both these public presentations tonight, but then through various committee and council reviews. So with that said, we do have another poll question that we will be going to. And so if we want to bring that up again, we're always going to be using the same website and the same code number for these polls. So if you could, we introduced ourselves, so we would love to hear who's on the call this evening. And, what organization are you from? Are you a homeowner, a business owner? Do you visit Waukegan, or do you have some other interest within Waukegan on the regular, or what brings you to use the uh, ordinance in your daily use? So I'll give a pause for people to insert that information. If you feel comfortable sharing your name, your organization, and how you're related to Waukegan and the zoning ordinance, the development ordinance. All right, and if you don't feel comfortable sharing that, that's perfectly fine. If you feel like just sharing in the chat, please do so, but we'll want to keep it moving to the next slide, which will talk a little bit about the Waukegan planning history. And I will hand it to Noelle to introduce herself again and then share a little bit more about how we got to this moment where we are today.
Thanks, Catherine. So we're really excited to be where we are today. We've been working with, let's say, older documents for quite some time. And so we've been wanting to get to this point, and we're excited to be where we are and are looking forward to the next steps going forward. So in 1980, the city adopted a comprehensive land use plan, and that was followed shortly thereafter in 1987 by an update to that plan, which was followed almost immediately by a new zoning ordinance, which was adopted in late 1987. That is the basis of the ordinance that we've been using for the zoning ordinance since then. It has had over 200 updates in the time in between. In 2020, we updated, our comprehensive land use plan, and are excited now to adopt this unified development ordinance that folds in not only our zoning ordinance, but other city codes that you'll hear about shortly, so that we can have a comprehensive ordinance that will be more publicly accessible, more user-friendly, and more consolidated, so all the information will be in one place. So this is a huge step for us, long time coming, and we're really excited about it.
Thank you, Noelle, for that. And that takes us up to what we've been working on through the last few months or the last few years, very specifically on this version of the Unified Development Ordinance. So coming from 2022, starting around existing conditions research and creating memos to present to the Planning and Zoning Commission to start that process of, let's update, let's consolidate, let's bring this up to kind of current use. The draft ordinance was worked on throughout 2023 and had a series of both public meetings, various support, and also CMAP was part of that draft ordinance process. As we moved into 2024, there were various draft reviews of, reviews of earlier drafts of the project, and that is also when the latent and sightline teams were brought on to help work with the Waukegan and CMAP teams to kind of get to a final point of review and meetings for the UDO. As we're moving into Q2 of 2024, there's a series of planning, zoning, and committee meetings, and ultimately going towards city council adoption. And this public meeting is a public meeting to be able to have additional comment, additional virtual recording to be able to share to the public. And this precedes the final draft release of the full UDO to the public, which is a hefty document. It will be well over 250 pages altogether, but we will have this public meeting first. We've had and if you go to the next slide, we've also had a series of various types of outreach throughout that time. So it's been in newsletters, mailers, digital and physical notifications have been shared throughout Waukegan and through the Waukegan and the Planning and Zoning Department website. We have also had a series of public meetings. We've had kind of 2 open house conversations where we've shared the information that we're sharing this evening with the broader public, and also kind of hear questions from the public around the various topics that were mentioned: zoning, parking, landscaping, things like that. And then now we are creating this online recording. So we have long-term digital access to information about the UDO that'll be on both the CMAP and the City of Waukegan websites for ease of access. We go to the next slide. And if you want to know where you find that, the website at the top of the page, engage.cmap.illinois.gov/Waukegan UDO. It rolls off the tongue, so you will be able to find it very easily. We also do have a QR code to make it a little bit more expeditious. And it is also in the chat link that was just sent. So you'll always be able to find it there. I'll pause for a second, and then we will now go into information about the UDO itself. So the question kind of here is what is it? What is a Unified Development Ordinance? And it's a document that brings together your zoning, your subdivision regulation, all of these different components of design guidelines, water management, everything you need to kind of understand how to operate in a city into a single document. So we're looking at from permits and processes to regulations to also what building use size and program that we can have within the city of Waukegan. It's, as mentioned, it's a document that was created on older versions, or Waukegan's been working on older versions of the document. So we are working through updates that kind of look at both streamlining elements of the UDO itself in terms of thinking about new land use regulations and making it ultimately trying to make it easier to understand. There's been about 4 main phases of the project that we overviewed both in the 2 slides previously, looking at reviewing existing conditions, assessing existing regulation and public comment, drafting the ordinance, which has been the biggest chunk of the timeline to date. And now we are in phase 4, which is public review and adoption of the ordinance itself. And we know there are many different participants and guests and visitors and homeowners within Waukegan. And so we do look at how this affects everyone in those capacities. So if you're a homeowner, the UDO is is regulating zoning, building standards, and other aspects of property development. So thinking about how that unified development ordinance is going to inform if you want to purchase a property or expand a property. Those are things that will be outlined within the UDO and hopefully be more clear from previous versions. If you're a business owner, this regulates where businesses can operate, the type of business, aesthetic standards, parking standards, landscaping, all of those pieces. These are not new elements. They've been a part of previous versions of the ordinance. They are just more streamlined and more clear, and updating also various diagrams and supporting documents that go with this. So this is still a very I would say pro-business document, but we're hopefully it's making it easier for businesses to understand where they could go, what type of business, and hopefully cut through time and red tape to be able to do that. And then if you visit Waukegan often for the beautiful lakefront or any of these great businesses that are opening up, as a visitor, this is kind of like shaping what those retail and commercial districts look like, conditions of public spaces and parks, and thinking about, aesthetic standards, cultural preservation, as well as we all know, parking requirements. So various components of how people interact with Waukegan as either a resident, a business owner, or a visitor start to be informed by the development ordinance. And if you see on the right of that screen, there is another poll question. And so we do want to ask, how important are these topics to you? We have and you could rank it in order from no opinion on some of these topics too. It's a very important topic for you. We have general understanding of how the UDO impacts you, zoning classifications and map changes, off-street parking, landscaping, signs, sustainability. And if anyone suggests other, I would love to know what other means to you, so we could hopefully be able to address that. I'll pause and let people answer. All right. So it seems we have really strong opinion tonight from this group around landscaping. So thinking about that, landscaping is a very important topic to this group, followed by parking and sustainability. Then general understanding and zoning classifications and signs. And thank you for no others for tonight, but always welcome. And I think one of the things that the Waukegan planning and development staff are interested in is, as this becomes live and it gets adopted by city council, really how are people using this in real time? And so there's a flexibility built within the language. And I think you have an incredibly receptive staff to hear how it's being used, how it might be improved once this is adopted by council. Next slide. All right, so one of the first things, and this I will also lean on the Waukegan team to support and get in more detail if needed, is how did zoning change? Well, first there were it's a lot more simplified overall. We're going from 27 different zoning districts to 17 for cleaner navigation and understanding. Design requirements were simplified and clarified across the board with that. And then bulk standards were revised to reduce minimum lot size, remove FAR, which stands for floor area ratio, which is how big and how much, a revised lot width range, and front yard averages. So with that, those are moves to make it more clear to understand what what can be built in what location, what business or what use can be used in a location, and hopefully encourage more density and development, clarity and development. You will see that your zoning districts, your residential districts is much more streamlined. So we were pulling the Waukegan team pulled together. Essentially, for example, R1 and R2, those were both two individual single family zoning districts that were previously existing, and now it merged into one zoning district called R2. Those are elements where you could start to streamline the amount of zoning districts that were in the previous UDO to the new one. Other districts that have been clarified or updated, for example, can be the central business district. So previously, the central business district had the B4 district and also the B5 central service district, and that is now consolidated into the B4 downtown district. The same for office, consolidated into one office district, industrial consolidated into one light industrial district, and then clarity around the marina, what was previously the Marine Commercial Recreation District, clarity on that for the Marina District, North Lakefront, which is new, and then thinking about an entertainment district, which was previously the Western Gateway overlay district. So all of those elements together kind of went into that streamlining of and simplification of the districts, and then clarity on what uses are allowed within that. For the Waukegan team, is there anything that you want to add regarding these zoning changes that would be beneficial?
I think one thing we'll point out, and thank you, Catherine, for that. One thing we'll point out is that there was a concerted effort to try to make as many legal non-conforming properties as possible conforming under the new rules, which allows more flexibility for owners, more ability to make changes to your property, get financing, refinancing, those kinds of things. So it should make life easier for property owners, and that was important to us to do that to the extent that we could.
Thank you, Noelle, for clarifying that.
Sure.
Anything else? All right, we do have another poll related to this particular question around zoning. And this one is related to outcomes. So with that, what is the most important to you regarding these zoning modifications that are part of the Unified Development Ordinance? They are all outcomes, but we want you to rank them in order of the most important to you. So we heard about bringing non-conforming properties into conformity, understanding what's allowed on my property, make development easier downtown, or simplify design requirements. The UDO does all of these things, but we would love to see how people rank those in most order of most important. We start to see making development downtown easier coming forward. Fantastic. So we see by a little bit of a larger margin, looking at making downtown development easier downtown. I think that is one of the opportunities that come with the revisions, the new Unified Development Ordinance, and then also I think is a goal. Bringing understanding what's on my property, bringing non-conforming properties into conformity, and then simplifying design requirements are all also outcomes that come from this new ordinance. All right, thank you. So then next we want to go to a topic that we did see come up in one of the earlier polls regarding parking. So we know, yeah, Waukegan does have a downtown and a lakefront that is very beautiful and walkable, but it also is a driving city too, and to get around. So we wanted to think a little bit more as a team of how our off-street parking and how that can be updated to promote health, safety, and general welfare of the public. Let's make sure that there's, clear parking standards, clear drive aisles, clear curb cuts, different things, so that is easier to understand from a design standpoint and a design guideline standpoint. Looking to provide safe and efficient traffic circulation, ensure enough vehicular and bicycle parking. So we also want to use this to encourage multimodal activity, more pedestrian use, more bike use, if possible, throughout Waukegan. We want to also minimize impervious surface coverage associated with parking and loading. So impervious means that it is a hardscape, concrete, asphalt, etc., and that it is not able to drain rainwater and stormwater, which ultimately ends up going into overall into the sewer system and then can create issues. We want to enhance and have landscaping features within that. And then also be able to define how much of a parking lot should or a site development should be impervious versus be able to drain naturally off the parking lot. And then finally, making sure there's adequate site access and loading facilities for businesses and developments that require it and might need it. What we do within the UDO, as well as you could see on that bottom row, a series of diagrams that are going to be part of the UDO once it's passed. So this is also helping clarify parking requirements, landscaping, bike parking locations, sight lines. All of those diagrams are being updated and becoming more clear. And we cover also new topics that the previous versions did not, such as electric vehicle parking and requirements. Also thinking about how downtown parking requirements will be impacted as well. So they will be impacted by removing all non-residential parking minimums and reducing residential parking requirements. So this will change for some of the downtown parking requirements for new developments. It won't change for existing developments, but it will be applicable for new ones. And then before I move forward, is there anything around regarding parking that the Waukegan team wanted to add before we move forward? If not, we could go to the parallel that I talked about during parking was talking through landscaping. So we do want to think about landscaping in parallel, both within the public right of way, the streetscape, but also thinking about overall Waukegan character and livability and shade and beautification. We also the UDO is also updating landscape standard provisions to improve water and air quality, goals of mitigating heat island effect, preventing stormwater conveyed into the storm sewer system. So landscaping and parking and impervious surfaces are kind of coupled together as a strategy to reduce the amount of stormwater that goes into the storm sewer system. We're also looking at landscaping to prevent erosion and improve habitat for native plants and animals, as well as provide transitions between zoning districts. So as you have clarity in the zoning districts to date, in this new UDO, we also are using landscaping as a way to provide transition between maybe a predominantly residential district and a business district or light industrial or commercial and so forth. So a couple ways does the UDO impact private property landscaping, and it does through those buffer zones between zoning transitions, as I mentioned previously. What in the next question of what is the city in charge of for landscaping? So the city looks at the public right of way. So that's in the parkways, the sidewalks, various components within the public right of way. Those are city aligned landscaping and city responsible landscaping. Sorry. But the UDO also is defining landscaping within private development realms, such as parking lots or other kind of private public realm features. Sorry about that. Is there anything anyone wants to add regarding landscaping?
I'll just mention while we're here for a second that our previous code referenced the Chicago Botanic Garden list for tree choices, and we're changing that now to the Morton Arboretum, which is a more detailed list that also provides information about what types of trees are suitable for what types of locations. So we think that that'll be really helpful and also make the information much more accessible for our audience.
And Noel, I believe that if folks want to watch that public meeting there was a presentation by the Morton Arboretum last year that was given. They can read more about that on the CMAP website. Is that right?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. There's also one on parking that's good to watch.
I'll drop those links in the chat for everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Noelle. Thanks, Louisa, on that. All right, that was landscaping. So let's move forward to signs. All right, so we want to talk a little bit through signs and sign standards. This will be also outlined as part of the UDO, really to think about how signage can both promote businesses, which, you know, we want to encourage and grow, but also protect and enhance neighborhood character. Signs, you know, the information within the UDO will start to think about ways that we could reduce sign clutter and also motorist distraction. Ultimately thinking about ways that we could keep signs that are existing and conforming, but also try and not encourage a few things that happen within signage, signage enforcement as businesses kind of come into Waukegan. So one of those is thinking about you know, making sure temporary signs stay temporary and don't become a permanent sign. So putting more clarity and regulation around what's a temporary sign, what's the duration, and when is it allowed, and when does it need to become a permanent sign. Putting more clarity on how to apply for a sign permit, clear instructions on what is permitted and what is not through some of these diagrams that will show, you know, here's an A-frame sign, here's where an awning sign, what it is, where it should go, maximum sizes, but then also very clearly showing what types of signs maybe we don't want to encourage anymore, such as, you know, large scale building signage, inflatable signage, you know, things like that, that could be distracting both to a motorist, but then also within kind of the visual landscape of a business district. So with that, you know, we want to make sure that this kind of creates both regulation, but then also enhances the clarity of use and the information and creates kind of cohesive business districts overall. And this was also an element regarding signs that we found within overall within the various departments in Waukegan, that having that additional clarity of information helps across the board, because a different department might see a sign permit come in before the zoning department, before a business license gets issued. And so by having a more streamlined UDO, this allows for all the different departments to be clear, have a clear set of information to be able to share to business owners as they're coming in. So that's part of that clarity that this document will be able to achieve. And next slide. Overall, between the previous version of the UDO and this one, there's a greater emphasis on a sustainable future for Waukegan. So a couple ways that the document is doing that. It's talking about clarity in landscaping and promoting increased landscaped environments, talking more clearly about impervious surfaces through parking requirements, and then thinking about requirements for EV parking spaces as well. Sorry.
Just to continue off of Catherine's train of thought, the various requirements, all of them come together to focus on what a more walkable, what a more sustainable future looks like for the city. There are also various small impacts to residential owners, homeowners, or owners of parking lots, businesses that might impact you. And if you think that you're interested in exploring any of these different alternate energy solutions, things like that, feel the usage and the regulations are all clarified in various parts of the UDO. So there's not a section for it very specifically, but and you can always reach out to any of the staff of the planning department that are here today with additional questions for how you might be impacted.
Right, and that's through items such as, PV arrays on your roof if you're a homeowner, taking advantage of statewide energy discounts and things like that. Now there's more information regarding that, but to Luisa's point, and thank you for jumping in there, what is that there's always staff to answer that in more clarity and more specificity for your particular project. But trying to find ways, and these images at the bottom are also kind of indicative of ways that this might the UDO might manifest these types of changes of more sustainable features on buildings or on residences, more trees and plantings, less impervious surfaces, and overall kind of thinking about ways that public realm can be beautiful and sustainable. And then I think we do have a closing Menti poll that we want to go through. And during this poll, we could also pause and have some questions answered and have open discussion for those who are on the call. So tonight we have a series of questions. We shared a little bit of information about the updates that are coming as part of the UDO. So, what are your initial thoughts? Was this clear? Is there more information that we could share? We're happy to go back to certain slides if needed. We've got a great brain trust on the call to answer questions. Are there additional resources that could be shared as part of the UDO or elsewhere? Are there any areas of concerns? And, what do you hope to see after the adoption of the UDO? So I'll pause and let people review and respond to those questions. Again, using your phone or computer to go to menti.com and use the code 3538-3951 that you see at the top of the screen, or you could also answer these questions in the chat. There were two questions that came in. One of them, hopefully someone can expand, either you can unmute and answer or put it in the chat. So what did you mean by more information on solar panels on your house? Did you mean in terms of, can you do it? Like, is it allowed per your zoning district, or were you looking more for like, what's the process from a permitting standpoint? Or maybe incentives that are there? Is there a little bit more clarity that you could add regarding the solar panel question?
Well, in the meantime, we can answer that other question that's there. Where will I find the UDO when it's released? So it should be, we want residents and business owners to have the ordinance at their fingertips. So it will be available on the city's website in an easy to read and online reference point. If staff wants to elaborate on that, please feel free.
Absolutely. So we will have this session and the prior information sessions housed on our YouTube channel. I'll say in perpetuity, assuming that YouTube will be in perpetuity, that we know that those things change. But certainly the document itself will be on the city's website, most likely similarly to how our current zoning ordinance is, and that is a PDF document housed within the planning department's page, as well as folded into the city's overall codes in the Municode link, or the city codes link on the city's website. And that'll take a little bit of time to get folded in there and reposted, but it will be there ultimately. And there's always a phone call to the planning department. And I'll drop that number in the chat for anybody who wants it.
Thank you for that. There was another question, I think a follow-up to the solar question. It was about information about permits and rules, like that will definitely be with process within the UDO that will be outlined of what's your permit pathway and what are items to regulate within solar installation. In terms of reputable contractors, that is not information that will be in the UDO. That is probably available through other third parties as part of thinking about a type of solar installation and contractor and purchasing project. So hopefully that answered your question. Another one that came up is, how do I know what property is zoned as? That's a great question. And that'll be part of an updated zoning map that will be available on the city's website. So you will be able to search for a property and look at the new zoning map and be able to see what it's zoned as. And then in turn, you'll be able to reference within the UDO document what type of uses are permitted or would be special use within that particular zoning district. So then the goal is that, say, for example, you're a business owner, you could see, well, I'm interested in this particular building in this location, be able to look to see what that building is zoned as, and then is your particular type of business allowed within that zoning district that you're proposing. This will also help quite a bit internally within the departments. So then this new document will then be able for the business licensing division, that they will be able to also know what's allowed within different addresses and different zoning districts. So they might be able to advise and help you when you're going through your business licensing process. But it also gives a lot more empowerment to business owners and to the general public to do the due diligence ahead of time, to be able to vet properties, to be able to vet and consider different locations and different business types within Waukegan. Another one, when will all these changes start? I will answer it very simply, and then hand it over to Noel, to be able to answer that a little bit more. So part of it is when the changes start is after city council adoption. So we do have a few public meetings before that with both the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Community Development Committee, and ultimately City Council. And then once adopted, then there is a certain amount of days, which Noel is going to have to tell me. I don't think it's immediate before this is ultimately adopted. So I will hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Catherine. So the effective date will be set within the ordinance when it's adopted, so we'll know exactly what that target date is. I imagine it will be relatively quickly after adoption, as we've all been very eager for this. With any luck, it'll be the very next day, but more than likely it'll be a week or the beginning of the next month or something like that. But the actual ordinance that's adopted by city code, or by city council, pardon me, will set an exact effective date for the code.
Thanks, Noel. And I do know a couple of other people had joined, so we are currently right now going through overall Q&A towards the end of the presentation. That is walk through various components, the major items that are changed within the UDO itself, the Unified Development Ordinance. Those were comments and presentation around parking, landscaping, sustainable features, and just general overall history of the project and how we got to this point of where we're at. So I know I'll pause and see if there's any other questions that we want to answer, or if we want to go back to any slides and talk through them a little bit more. Okay, if we want to go to the next slide. As we close out, as mentioned, it was a good transition question. What are the next steps that we're looking at? So the final draft release to the public will be within this quarter, so spring 2024. We're looking hopefully within the next 30 to 45 days or so. Looking at once that's released, then it will get on a calendar to have the public hearing with Planning and Zoning Commission introduction. From there, it will go to the Community Development Committee introduction, and then finally City Council introduction and approval. So a series of steps that'll be happening over the next month or two in order to get that into summer adoption. Noelle, did I catch everything correctly on that?
I think that you did. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Part of being able to share that final draft when it's released to the public is the full document. So that'll be on both the city on Waukegan's website and then also through CMAP. I'm sure there will be some social media posts and announcements that is available. So the public will be aware, and then within a short order, then we'll start going through the planning, zoning, and community development meetings to get to council prior to summer. And so with that, I feel we have gone through the bulk of our presentation and are coming to an end. So I want to, before we kind of say thank you, which is on the next slide, I believe, and close out for the evening, I want to give one more chance for any final comments, additions, clarifications, either from the audience or from the Waukegan CMAP and Sightline teams.
I'll just reiterate a statement that I made at the outset that we're very excited about this. It's been a long time coming and we're in the home stretch. This support team with Latent and Sightline and CMAP has been amazing, getting us to this point and getting us across the finish line. We couldn't be in better hands. And so, you know, we encourage the members of our community to stay involved. And if you missed the prior presentations, the parking presentation, the tree presentation, please go to Waukegan TV on YouTube and watch those presentations and watch this one when it gets up there after this evening. So you can catch up on anything you might have missed at the beginning or hear it again, and reach out to the department if you have any questions or anything that we can address for you or comments in the meantime. And then once that draft is released, please give us your feedback. We want to hear from you. Send us an email, give us a call. We're glad to hear whether you feel that it meets your needs and is understandable and approachable and beneficial for the community. So, you know, tell us what you think. It matters. And again, I put the phone number in the chat, but I'll also say it. The City of Waukegan Department of Planning and Zoning general phone number is 847-625-6878. Again, 847-625-6878. And we do appreciate your phone calls and your feedback. Thank you.
Thanks, Noelle, and that's in the chat and also the link to the Waukegan YouTube channel. So not many zoning departments let you give out their number and we'll actually answer your call. But this is really a great team in Waukegan who does care very passionately about the city and making sure that people can thrive within it. And you know, the UDO, it's maybe not the most sexy part of it, but it's a really an integral part of how the city works, functions, and ultimately grows and accommodates future uses. And so with that, I think we could close out. I think we could stop recording also on this. And I appreciate everyone taking the time this evening to share a little bit more hear a little bit more about the new Unified Development Ordinance, and then also share some of your feedback with us. So I appreciate it. Thank you. And hopefully we will hear comments in the near future or see you at one of the council meetings